Let's talk about variables. There are three types of variables we can declare. So one, var, and then let, and then we have const. So we'll go one by one. So what are variables? We need to know, right? It's just a container or a box for storing data. Say I want to store a value in a variable. The way we do it is var x is equal to 5. So we are storing 5 number in a variable x. I can say var name equal to John. We are storing this value in name variable. You're basically filling these variables with the data that you want. This var stands for variable. So this var is used in all JavaScript code from 1995 to 2015, and then in 2015 they added let and constant keywords to JavaScript. So if you want to run your code in an older browser, you must use var for sure. You can declare let a is equal to 6 or let first name equals John. This is what we declare. Const is also same. B is equal to 7. Const last name equals Dio. So the main difference between var, let, and const are var is going to be used throughout your whole program, and let will be only used within a scope where it is declared, and constant will never change. Suppose I have like const pi is equal to 3.14. So this will be constant throughout the program. We can't change it anymore. Once it's declared and set a value, then it's done. We can use it wherever we want, but we can't change the value of const variable. So all these variables are declared with a unique name, right? So these are all called identifiers. This is an identifier. These names can be letters, digits, underscores, dollar sign. I can say underscore, or I can say dollar, but not with the number. If I say 7 or 8b, it will give an error. And this can be case sensitive. We'll dig more into these ones later in the tutorial. For now, we'll understand how these are declared. If you just have this var and x is just called as declaring a variable, I would say var abc is just declaring a variable, and var c equals 10, I'm assigning a variable. This is technically undefined, and when you assign a value, this will have a value whatever we assigned. So variable names and function names in JavaScript are case sensitive, meaning capitalization matters. So let's say var capital X is equal to 19, some number. So if I say console.log x and capital X, so what would be the result? 5 and 19. This is how we declare variable in JavaScript. Let's declare a variable using let. As we already know that we can use var, let, constant to create variables. I'll walk you through with a let. As we already know, variables are a way to store information that we can use later in our code, right? So to declare a variable using let, we need to use let keyword. And we have to, and this followed by name of the variable, say count. Okay. So this is how we declare a variable. This is the same way as we do with var, but there is some difference. We'll talk about that later. Right now, this doesn't have any value. It's just an empty container. So to give variable a value, we can use is equal to operator, and we can set a value to this count as 0. So now we have variable count with a value 0 in it, and we call it the same way we did it with the var variable. let's say console dot log count print and refresh the page. So you'll see the output in console. Let's take an example of constant. The way we declare a constant variable is using constant keyword, constant pi. It's giving an error because constant is declared must be initialized. That's the basic criteria of constant. So it has to have a value. Let's assign a value to this variable, 3.14159, right? Okay, now we don't see the same error. So basically we have created a constant variable. Let's print it on console. Pi. Save it. Print it. See the value printed here. So what happens if I want to change the value of pi to something 3.15 or 13? It gives an error, right? So it's just because the value of the constant variable cannot be changed. It is important to use constant when we have a value that shouldn't be altered throughout our code. Let's talk about the difference between var, let, and constant. So when you declare a variable with var, it has a global scope by default. So let's say var name is equal to, let's say, John. So when I say global scope by default, it can be accessed from anywhere in your code, including inside function or other block of code. So I've declared this variable, right? Let me create a function called print name. And this does not take any parameter. We just print using console.log and say my name is plus whatever the name declare and end of the statement, and call this print name function. So what we basically did is we have declared a variable called name using var, and we set it to a value called that is John. We defined a function print name, and which basically logs the message to a console which includes name. Now we refresh the page. What do you see here? My name is John, right? So when we call this print name, it basically successfully logged a message with the name. This is because the name has a global scope and can be accessed from anywhere in the code. The main downside of using var is this can lead to variable hoisting, which basically makes it difficult to understand how your code is working. So the hoisting is a behavior in JavaScript where the variable we declare are moved to the top of their scope, meaning you can use this variable before it is being declared. I can say name, and let's see what happens. It's undefined, right? But it's not giving any error right away here. So it just says undefined, but it's not throwing any error. And it letting us to use the name variable before it is being. So because of this hoisting, the code is actually running without any error. But the name, whatever we are trying to print, is undefined. So this behavior makes it difficult to understand how the code is working, and this will lead to bugs. This is the main reason why developers prefer to use let and constant, which do not hoist variables. Instead, these let and constant throw error if you try to use variable before it is being declared. This is all about var, and we can do the same with let. What happens with the let? Let's change this to let and we don't need this function, and we can get rid of it. Instead of function, we can say if true. In the saying, we say console log say inside the code block the name is plus the name. End of the statement. And we get rid of this as well. Do it. Into the code block, the name is John. Suppose if I declare a variable with the same name and say Sarah and refresh it. Now it has been changed to the name is Sarah. So it proves that it is just block scoped. I would say let's copy this one outside the scope, right? Outside the scope. Let's print it. So inside the scope of this block, we have Sarah printed and outside John. So this is how it is scope based. As this name is only accessible within the block of code where it is declared, it's logging Sarah here. And the name outside the block, we get John because we are accessing variable declared outside the block. This basically shows us how variable declared with let have a block scope and can be used to avoid naming collisions between variables in different block of code. Let's take a look at a constant variable. A constant is a keyword used to declare a variable and that cannot be reassigned once we declare or define that. Meaning the value of constant variable remains same throughout the code no matter what, and we cannot change once it is assigned, or we cannot change it later point of time. The way we defined const variable is by 3.14159 and to a console. .log. Hi. Save it. Let's refresh the page and see the result. 3.14159. You can say it in console. So what if I want to change the pi value later? I do 3.14. Save it. See what happens now. It throws uncaught type error assignment to the constant variable. I can click on this to see where exactly it's throwing error. Uncaught type exception, right? So we can't change the constant value once it is assigned. So let's say we have a const object or const array. What happens if we change a property of object? So this is going to throw an error. Let's take an example of const person is equal to name. I use John, my age 30. Let's do console.log person. Save it and print it. We see console. So what happens if I change the person dot age 31 and do console log again? So it's been changed to 31, but it's not throwing any error. Because the constant only prevents the variable itself, like we have here, from being reassigned. It does not prevent the modification of the property of an object or element of an array. So if we want to prevent modification to array or object, we have this object freeze, which makes object or array immutable. So the way we do it is object dot freeze, and then now it's not changing. Even though if we try to modify it, we're just getting the same value whatever we have it in here. Earlier we used to get 31, but now it's just 30 even though we reassigned it. So this is how we can freeze object or array being modified. So what we learned in this here is constant variables are particularly useful for values that should not change throughout the code. Basically like a mathematical constant or configuration settings. Please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so that you don't miss any video which are helping to learn coding and become a successful programmer. And I'll see you in next video.